Welcome to Swap On Tutorials. In this video, we're learning the basics of battle in the One Piece trading card game. This is a beginner-friendly guide, so we're not going to cover every advanced rule or every special card effect. Instead, we're going to focus on the core idea: how attacks work, how life is taken, how counter works, and how Don cards can make your attacks stronger. By the end, you should understand what's happening when one card attacks another, and you'll feel a lot more confident playing your first few games. Let's start with the goal of the game. In the One Piece game, each player has a leader card. Your leader has a life number, which tells you how many life cards you start with. Most leaders start with 4 or 5 life, depending on the card. Your aim is to attack your opponent's leader and reduce their life to 0. But getting them to 0 is not quite the end. Once your opponent has no life cards left, you still need to land one more successful attack on their leader to win the game. So the simple version is, attack the leader. Take their life, get them to 0, then land the final hit. That's the basic battle goal. So, who can actually attack? There are 2 main types of cards you'll usually attack with: your leader and your characters. Your leader can attack. This is important because your leader is always there from the start of the game. Your characters can attack too, but with one very important beginner rule. Characters generally cannot attack on the same turn they are played. So if you play a character from your hand, it normally needs to wait until your next turn before it can attack. A simple way to remember it is, your leader is ready to fight. Your new characters need a turn to get ready. This is one of the first things new players forget, so it's worth saying again. Don't play a character and immediately attack with it unless a card effect specifically says you can. Now, let's look at how you attack. To attack with your leader or a character, you rest that card. Resting means turning the card sideways. This shows that the card has already attacked, or that it has been used in some way. So if your leader is standing upright, it is active. If you turn it sideways to attack, it becomes rested. The same applies to characters. In a real game, this is really helpful because it makes the board easier to read. You can quickly see which cards have already attacked and which ones are still active. So the first step of the battle is simple. Choose your attacking card, then rest it. Next, you choose a target. Most of the time, especially when you're learning, you'll attack your opponent's leader. That's how you reduce their life and move toward winning the game. But you can also attack your opponent's characters, with one key restriction. Normally, you can only attack an opponent's character if that character is already rested. So if your opponent has an active character standing upright, you usually can't attack it. But if that character has already attacked, and it's now sideways, then it can become a target. That gives you a choice. Do you attack the leader and pressure their life? Or do you attack a rested character and try to clear the board? For beginners, attacking the leader is usually the easiest plan to understand. But as you get better, choosing when to attack characters becomes a big part of the strategy. Once you've chosen your target, you compare power. Every leader and character has a power number. For example, your attacking card might have 5,000 power, and the defending leader might also have 5,000 power. In the One Piece TCG, the attacker succeeds if their power is equal to or higher than the target's power. That means 5,000 attacking into 5,000 is enough. It hits. You do not need to be higher. Equal is good enough. That's a really important rule. So, 5,000 into 5,000? That hits. 6,000 into 5,000? That hits. 4,000 into 5,000? That does not hit unless you can increase your power somehow. And that brings us to defense. When you attack, your opponent usually gets a chance to defend. One of the main ways they do this is with counter. Some cards have a counter value printed on them, often plus 1,000 or plus 2,000. During a battle, the defending player can use counter cards from their hand to increase the power of the card being attacked. So imagine you attack your opponent's leader with 5,000 power. Their leader also has 5,000 power. Right now, your attack would hit. But your opponent uses a counter card from their hand that gives plus 2,000 power. Their leader is now 7,000 power for that battle. Your 5,000 attack is no longer enough, and the attack does not hit. This is why cards in hand matter so much. Even when your opponent looks vulnerable, they might have counter cards ready to protect their leader. For beginners, the key thing to remember is, counter cards can turn a hit into a miss. Now let's say the attack does hit the leader. What happens? If an attack successfully hits a leader, that player takes 1 life card. Usually, that life card is added to their hand. This is an interesting part of the One Piece card game, because taking damage also gives the player more cards to use. So attacking your opponent is good because you're reducing their life, but it also gives them more options. That means there's a bit of a balance. Sometimes your opponent might choose not to counter because they actually want the extra card from their life cards. Other times they'll counter because they need to protect their life card total. As you play more, you'll start to feel when it's worth defending and when it's better to take the hit. But for now, keep it simple. If the leader is hit, they take one life card, and that card usually goes into their hand. Now let's talk about Don. Don cards are one of the most important resources in the game. You use Don to pay costs, but you can also attach Don to your leader or characters to increase their power. Each Don attached gives plus 1,000 power during your turn. The official play guide describes Don as the resource used to pay costs or boost leaders and characters. So if your character has 5,000 power and you attach 2 Don cards, it becomes 7,000 power for that turn. That can help you attack over bigger targets or make your opponent use more counter cards to defend. For example, a 5,000 attack into a 5,000 leader is already enough to hit. But if you boost that attack to 7,000, your opponent now needs to find at least 3,000 power in counter to stop it. That's why Don is not just about playing cards. It's also about making your attacks more awkward for your opponent to defend. A good beginner tip is, don't attach Don randomly. Think about what number you're trying to reach and how much counter your opponent might need to stop the attack. Let's quickly recap. To battle, first choose your leader or an eligible character. Then rest that card by turning it sideways. Next, choose a target. You can attack the opponent's leader or one of their rested characters. Then compare power. If your attacking power is equal to or higher than the target's power, the attack will hit, unless your opponent defends. Your opponent can use counter cards from hand to increase their power and potentially stop the attack. If the attack hits the leader, they take 1 life card, which usually goes into their hand. And finally, you can use Don to boost your attacks and make them more powerful. So the simple battle flow is rest, choose a target, compare power, counter if needed, take life if the attack hits. That's the foundation of battling in the One Piece card game. Once you understand this, the rest of the game starts to make much more sense. In the next tutorial, we'll look more closely at how Don works, including paying costs, attaching Don cards, and planning your turn. Thanks for watching, and remember, learn the rules, play smart, have fun.